A young reporter went to a retirement home to interview an aged but legendary explorer. The reporter asked the old man to tell him the most frightening experience he had ever had. The old explorer said, "Once I was in the jungles of India. I was on a narrow path, and my faithful native gun-bearer was behind me. Suddenly, the largest tiger I have ever seen leapt onto the path in front of us. I turned to get my weapon only to find the native had fled. The tiger leaped toward me with a mighty roar. I just soiled myself." The reporter said, "Under those circumstances, anyone would have done the same." The old explorer said, "No, not back then. Just now when I went roar." A doctor, a priest, and an engineer go golfing. After only a few rounds, they get caught behind the worst group of golfers they've ever seen. After growing impatient from waiting for them to finish their holes, they go into the clubhouse to complain. "Let me explain," says the manager. "You see, those men all used to be firefighters, some of the best our city has ever seen. There was a fire here at the clubhouse about 5 years ago. Those heroic men saved our clubhouse from the fire. However, most unfortunately, they all lost their sight in the terrible fire. Since then, they are welcome to use our facilities for life. It's the very least we could do." The priest looks forlorn and says, "I'm so sorry to hear it. I will hold a prayer service this Sunday dedicated to these men." The doctor says, "What an awful thing. I know a highly regarded optometrist who has done some research that might be able to help them. I'll arrange for them to meet as soon as I can." The engineer thinks for a moment and says, "Why can't they golf at night?" Teacher, what do men and women have in the middle of their legs? Johnny, knees. Once upon a time, there was a man. Let's call him George. Now, George had a pet chicken, and he loved this chicken to death. He did everything with his chicken. He walked with it. He talked with it. He even bathed with it. One day, George decided he wanted to go to the movies and decided he would bring his chicken along with him. So, chicken in hand, he drives to the movie theater. When he gets to the theater, he buys 2 tickets. The employee who sold George his tickets asks, "Who is the other ticket for?" George responds, "Oh, it's for my pet chicken here." The employee then tells George that he can't bring a chicken to the movies. So being crafty, George walks into the alley next the movie theater and shoves the chicken down his pants. He then walks back into the theater and takes a seat. About halfway through the movie, he decides that the chicken could probably use some air, so he unzips his fly. Sitting next to George were a woman, and one says to the other, "Oh my, the man next to me just unzipped his fly." The other responds, "So what? You seen one, you seen 'em all." And woman number one responds, "Yeah, but this one's eating my popcorn." The bucket, the pond, and the quick-witted grandpa. An old man who lived on a quiet country farm decided to take a stroll one evening to check on the pond in the back of his property. It had been a while since he'd walked down there, and he figured he'd pick some fruit on the way, so he grabbed a bucket. The pond wasn't just any pond. It was nicely fixed up years ago with a few picnic tables, some shade trees, and space to relax. A little slice of peace and quiet. As he approached, he heard laughter, high-pitched, joyful, and very unexpected. Curious, he got closer, only to realize a group of young women were skinny-dipping in his pond. When they noticed him, they shrieked and swam to the far end, trying to stay hidden. One of them called out, "We're not getting out until you leave." The old man shrugged, raised his bucket, and said with a straight face, "That's fine. I just came down to feed the alligator." Needless to say, they were out of that pond faster than he could say snap. There is a monastery in Europe perched high on a cliff several hundred feet in the air. The only way to reach the monastery was to be suspended in a basket, which was pulled to the top by several old monks who pulled and tugged with all their strength. Obviously, the ride up the steep cliff in that basket was terrifying. One tourist got exceedingly nervous about halfway up as he noticed that the rope by which he was suspended was old and frayed. With a trembling voice, he asked the monk who was riding with him in the basket how often they changed the rope. The monk thought for a moment and answered brusquely, "Whenever it breaks."